Hi, this is Mario Andretti, and you're tuned into Cam, Graydon, and the team as Stickers and Scuffs podcast. They're true Canadian racing fans.
This episode of the Stickers N Scuffs podcast has been brought to you by RE/MAX Jack. Jack provides a friendly, customer-driven service in search for homes and provides excellent details on the market, values, and trends in buying and selling. Jack has been able to work with Cam on his search and always makes himself available when he has a question. RE/MAX Jack will help you if you're looking to buy or sell a home within the GTA. He's who Cam K trusts to find his next home, and he should be yours too. Remember, call RE/MAX Jack and start to pack. For more information, go to remaxjack.ca.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another special episode of the Stickers N Scuffs podcast. This time around, we are so privileged to have one of the biggest names in Canadian motorsports. Iron Man Gary Elliott is here, not just on the top of being the Iron Man, but also celebrating a milestone of all milestones, the longest running sponsorship partnership across Canada in motorsports. I don't know if it might be a history in motorsports in general, but Gary Elliott celebrating, they believe it's something crazy. I don't want to age you, but how long has it been with Quaker State?
This year's 2023 will be our 50th year together.
50th year together. You don't see it in a lot of things. So I'm really excited to ask, how did you get this to happen? Because it's not something that people can do. We see DJ Kennington's doing a pretty good job with Castrol, but what's the secret behind getting a very good partnership?
Well, I think there's a few reasons. One, obviously, is the people that you're dealing with like you, and I didn't mess up anywhere along the way. Not to make excuses, but there was no social media in the 80s. So, I've settled down a lot over in my life, probably the last 25 years. But, it really is a really good relationship. The difference between me and DJ is that he's had the same person for a long time. And I probably had 8 different people. And, yeah. So it's a little bit for me because I had one fellow that was looking after me, Mark Reed, with Quaker State for probably almost 20 years. And, and it was really good because it was easy to talk to him. I could call him. He asked me how I was doing. He knew the racing scene really well. But now when I'm dealing with the new people, they're marketing managers, and they're given a budget, and they're given areas where they can promote and where they can spend their money. And then one of the areas is me. Well, they don't know me. So they might know trade shows, they might know events that they can support. But then they say, what's this? Like, who's this guy and why, and they need to ask the questions of why are they supporting me. And then when somebody says, well, he's been with us since 1974, for most of them, that's before they were born. So, and maybe the odd one, maybe before their parents were born. So it's a long time. So, you know what? And I've been really good because if you were supposed to do 5 things to keep a sponsor, I try to do 15 things. I try to do way more than I have to, because for me, sponsors are the most precious thing that I have. So it's important for me to look after them, and I do everything I can to promote them, to be an ambassador for their product, and make sure that the way I race would not only glorify God, but it also would please my sponsors, because I don't become an incident or something controversial that happens during a race and it's all about me, because I don't like to do that at all, because I'm very conscious that the names on my car are people that I represent. So it's been a really good relationship. It's a two-way street for sure. I'm the only one they deal with, but I've dealt with quite a few on the other side. So I really need to be, patient but also be informing, and then let them know what I do. So they'll say, oh, okay, this is good. So we'll continue the relationship. So I'm really excited, because in 2013, it was my 40th year. And when people talk to me, they said, at that point, it was the longest driver sponsor partnership in racing history. And I forget whether I posted on Facebook or on my website, but I thought, man, wouldn't it be great to try to reach 50 years? And then I thought, wow, that's 10 years from now. And so many things can change, like COVID. But man, oh man, it's now 50 years. And I don't feel any different than I did in 2013, physically, mentally. And I did something that was kind of crazy the other day. And this isn't crazy from a bad point of view, but I went to research when Quaker State became a company, 1931. So they'll be 100 years old in 2031. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this is even possible, but wouldn't it be good to make that my final year? But that's 8 years from now. I'll be 127. No, I'll be much older.
You, speaking of Quaker State, they followed you through so many different disciplines and racetracks and through your career. What all have you climbed behind the wheel of in your racing career, Gary?
That's a good question.
Well, so
or should we ask what you haven't raced?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. Should we ask what you haven't raced? Would that be a shorter list?
Yeah, there's a couple classes, but all the ones I've raced, I've had fun, and you can only race so much because you want to be committed too. So you don't want to jump from class to class every year, because just if you and I'm just saying, it doesn't matter who it is, but if a person is popular in a certain series, the fans get used to see them, and they'd like to see them again next year, see them the year after that. So the fans are really dedicated to drivers and racetracks as well. So it's important, if you're ideally, the best thing for a track would be a guy to start in the mini stocks, then go to thunder stocks, then go to late model at the same track. And the fans will see him progress from 4-cylinder to small V8 to big V8. So, right. So I started in mini stocks, but that's not where I started. I started in demolition derbies. And not too many people would say I started in demolition derbies, but I wanted so bad to get on the racetrack when I was in my teens. So the only way to do it would be a demolition derby. So I didn't have a trailer. I didn't have any equipment or anything. So, and the idea, I used to watch demolition derbies, wreck-em races when I was a kid, going to the races, and they were so exciting. But the one thing I didn't like about them was the guy that would sandbag and then sit in a corner where everybody else is trashing their cars. And all of a sudden, when the last guy's limping around, he starts his car up and goes around and puts him out. Right. And I thought, that isn't fair, and it isn't right. So I started in 1967 in my first demolition derby in a 55 Chevy two-door hardtop. Now, just so the guys don't go crazy, they're classic car collectors, but this thing was rotted out, like it was rotted so bad. And maybe if we had it today, like they're doing miracles with cars today. You know, they got all the equipment to make fenders and doors and all that stuff. But anyway, my first demolition derby was at Flamborough Speedway, June 29th, 1967. And I won the demolition derby. It was 33 cars, and there was nothing left of my car at the end of the race. And the good news was you don't have to take the car home. So some guys, when you see a guy using the same car over and over and over and over again, he probably didn't beat it to death the first time. So, but I always made sure I did. If my car would even start or move, I was destroying other cars. And I did that about 20 times, demolition derbies, over my early career, and I won 6 of them. Now, when I say I won 6, that means because I had them actually change the rule that they didn't give it to the guy that was the last car running. They give it to the guy that put on the best show. So if you had a couple of guys that were just kind of laying back, letting everybody beat themselves up, well then, you know, they weren't really putting on a show. You get another guy out there and the fans are just roaring every time this guy hits a car, right? Because he's just giving her. And so they changed the rule. They said, we're not going to give the checkered flag to the last guy running. Now, if it's a really good race, well, I mean, what's a good race in a demolition derby? But if it's a good show and there's 2 cars left and they both put on a good show, then obviously the last guy running gets it. But anybody that sandbagged or sit back, you know what, they're not going to win it, even though they think they should, because the rule was the last car running. So I did that for quite a while. I won, my biggest race was at Pinecrest Speedway in 1970. I won $500 in an all-day record race. And nice. There was only 2 cars left. I had a 56 Pontiac and a guy had a 60 Chevy. And we were the only 2 left. And when he backed into the front of my Pontiac and broke the carburetor off my engine. But, now, you might not know this, but back in them days, like the carburetor was held on by a steel line. So it was a steel line coming from the fuel pump up to the carburetor. So when that broke, it didn't fall down on the ground like they would today, because they're soft lines and stuff like that, or flex lines, whatever. So it still stayed there and it was hanging above the intake, and I was still pumping it and it was dropping gas. So his car quit. Mine started up. I went about 4 feet and my car caught fire, and I bailed out of the car. I dove out the window and they put the fire out and they gave me the checkered flag. So that was pretty
Blaze
cool.
of glory.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And the next year, I was interviewed by the guy that does the magazines, and the magazine they made it was, is there a favor on the track? And because I had won so many demolition derbies, and no car did I take home, like none of them. So I just had a knack about it. I always like to get 6 cylinders, not V8s, because they would restart when they got hot. But a big V8 with power windows, power door locks, and all that stuff, as soon as they got hot, the battery would die. And they might have had a chance to win, but so I just beat these little 6 cylinders up real bad. And so then in 1969, Cayuga Speedway opened up 4-cylinder class. It was the first time that they ever had that. So Bob Slack they had a little small track in the middle of the big 5/8 oval. So it was just small going across the start finish line, and then it would be right in front of the grandstand, just an 8-mile track. Yep. So I raced there for 3 years and had a lot of really crazy memories and experiences there. I'll just tell you one. I left Toronto to go to Cayuga Speedway, and I had a 1-ton pickup truck. I had the Volkswagen on the back on a tow bar. My wife was, it was July, so she would be July, September, October. So she was 7 months pregnant with my son. And so we're driving along. We go over halfway up the Skyway Bridge. My right rear tire blows on my truck. So I go over the Skyway Bridge, and back then they used to have a toll down at the bottom, so where you would pay. And so I pulled over, and I went to the toll and asked them if I could use the phone. They said sure. So I used the phone, and I tried to call to see if I could get somebody to bring. I didn't have a spare tire, and which is typical back then. I didn't have anything spare, right? I didn't even have the proper tools. My dad said to me, he said, "So you're going to race cars now?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you have a garage?" I said, "No." He said, "Do you have tools?" I said, "No." "Do you have a tow vehicle?" I said, "No." So how are you going to do this? I said, "I'll tow it with my 64 Pontiac or whatever." But then I had a truck, so I had a 1-ton, so nobody could come and get me. And I'm stuck at the bottom of the Skyway Bridge, and it's like 5:15 now, and I got to get to Cayuga Speedway. So are you familiar with that area?
Yep.
Okay, so I drive from there to Highway 20, and I go through Stony Creek, and bump, 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 bump. The truck is just rattling and banging. I get to the bottom of the hill, and there's a Sunoco station, so I go in there, and my tire's just smoking so bad, like it's just smoldering. And I said to the kid, I said, "Do you have any spare wheels or tires?" He said, "Well, number one, I don't have one that big." It was a 20-inch, right? Back in 2000 or 1971, it was a 20-inch. He said, "I wouldn't have nothing like that." He said, "Maybe tomorrow. Can you wait till tomorrow?" I said, No, I got to get to the races. I can't wait till tomorrow. So anyway, my wife said, "Well, what are we going to do?" I said, "Well, we can still move." So I went up the hill going towards the old Speedway Park. And I went up the hill all the way up sideways, fishtailing, because there was no grip. And my Volkswagen was bouncing up and down. The windshield cracked halfway up. The door handle fell off. My wife was holding on. We finally got to the top, and it was smooth. I thought, man, that's good. She said, "How can you call it good? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you don't have a spare?" I said, "If we did, we would have put it on an hour ago. Like, we don't have a spare." Then we went from there to Cayuga Speedway, and all the way down, like, everything was so bumpy until I got past Binbrook. All of a sudden, everything was smooth. And my wife said, "What happened?" I said, "There's no tire left." So the tire had flown off, and we were just on the rim.
Yeah.
So I was just on the rim, and I could do 30 miles an hour. So I'm driving at 30 miles an hour, not realizing that I'm heating up the rear end, not really caring, because I just want to get to the track. I called Cayuga Speedway and asked them about if they would wait for me. He said, "Well, where are you?" I said, "I'm on Highway 6 near Rymel Road." He said, "Well, you're right near Speedway Park." He said, "Why don't you go there? Because you can race there and you don't have to tow all the way here." And I said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm coming to Cayuga Speedway." Anyway, 9:30 at night, I'm going along Highway 3 to try to get to the track with an array of sparks flying from the back of my car. The only thing left of the wheel when I got to the track was the bolt pattern. And it looked like it was the size of a dinner plate. It totally wore out the wheel. Anyway, I got there, and they did wait for me. And
Wow.
they ran the modifieds first, and they ran the late models, and then they ran the mini stocks last. And then I go out and I get on the track. I said, come on. We get out there and get lined up. So I did. And what a night. And so I had to stay overnight there. And the next morning I go to the junkyard, and he sells me a wheel for $8. And I did a lot of damage to my truck.
I bet.
But I didn't miss a night.
Oh, man.
Oh,
So
well,
that was mini stocks. I did that until 1972, and then I went to race hobby cars. And after 33 years racing that, I decided to go to late model. So my son also raced hobby cars from 1988. I really was excited to race with him. So he raced from 88 till 2003, and then he took the year off, and then he got a really good sponsor from Lucas Oil, and they sponsored him enough that he bought a late model, and then he got a late model, and he went on to win 10 championships and all kinds of things. And then I moved into late model in 2005, and I'm still racing late model. And in 2014, I bought an Oscar modified, and I raced them for 6 years. And I didn't bring that with me down here because there's no place I could race it. So
oh no,
to Wally Wilson up in Ontario. His dad, Paul Wilson, they bought it, and they still have it.
That's your car? No way.
Yeah.
Oh man, Wally's a buddy of ours. He's a great guy.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, what a great family they are.
Yeah.
They
my
bought
God.
both my late model. They bought my late model and my modified.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Small world. We love hearing where we talk about this all the time, where people's race cars end up over the years, and that's just so neat. By happenstance, we find who owned Wally's car. That's so neat.
I'm loving these stories because it's funny because we go and we talk all the time about, I can't remember a lick of math, but I can remember racing stats from whatever, right?
Yeah, he's funny, your guy for that stuff.
Right. And then it's you go, you can't remember what you did yesterday, but you can remember a story from 1971, 1974. Doesn't matter what it is. You remember all the details. I love that because it shows, how much it means to you to be able to still be doing this. Right. Oh. And that it's got to be cool because you're racing now out in Atlantic Canada. And I'm very curious, Gary, what is the racing scene like out in Atlantic Canada? Because in Ontario, we don't really hear too much about it. So how is it? Is it healthy? Is there work to be done? And what tracks are you running out of?
So they have almost every division here that they have in Ontario. And I'll compare it with Ontario because that's where I was for 51 years racing. Mm-hmm. And I've been here 3 now. So I have 54 years racing, 3 of them here. And so the series I race in is the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour. Mm-hmm. And it's basically the same as APC. The only difference might be they run a Raptor transmission and we can run some of the guys are running a high tower and some guys are running I can't think of the one I got in my own car, but anyway, I'll think of it after. But anyway, and then they run a way better shock than we do until this year. And now we've opened up the shock rule to run better shocks. So, but better shocks means more money. So that's the simplicity of it. But we have some really, really good racers in our series. 2 of them right now. Well, Cole Butcher, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
So he won the Oxford 250. He should have won the Winchester 400. The kid's an absolute. He's a genius. He's a great racer, clean racer, drives so hard. And if you took the top 10 here and the top 10 in Ontario, it would probably be a really, really good race. Like I was hoping that they would do a home and home. So they would, maybe 15 guys leave here and go to race at Flamborough or Peterborough or Sunset, and then 15 of them come here and either run at Riverside or Scotia Speed World or Petty, whatever. But it would be, and then you just have to raise enough money to give them enough tow money and then have a decent purse. But what a great challenge that would be to see the top runners from Ontario racing against the kids down here that are absolutely great racers. Like there's a lot of really good racers here. So I don't know that they're any better than the guys in Ontario. Some of them probably, I honestly, racing is based a lot on what you can afford, because I really believe there's a lot of awesome race car drivers that are sitting in the grandstands. They can't do it. And I mean, they could run a mini stock, or they could run a for fun, or they could run, but they don't want to do that. They got the talent to race, APC, but they don't have the backing. They don't have the funding. So they end up, just falling out. And that's why I'll never ever say anything bad about anybody that used to race and doesn't race anymore, because a lot of it's finance. The money down here is unbelievable. There's at least 7 or 8 race teams down here, highly funded. When you go to a race here and you see 7 or 8 stackers, NASCAR stacker trailers, you see one maybe in Ontario. You might see anywhere to 8 to 10 here. Unbelievable. And they're all smart. These kids are smart. Like they're and the same in Ontario too. Like there's a lot of really good guys. But anyway, that scene is really good. They also have a tour for what would be the super stocks, which they call them sportsmen here. Mm-hmm. Same basic car, and they're actually bringing back Thunder cars now, street stocks. Thunder car and street stock is just, I think a Thunder car is just a street stock on steroids. So, but the new super stock class in Ontario used to be the Thunder cars, and now they've progressed into being a really good series, and they're attracting a lot of guys that ran late model. They can't afford late model anymore, so they're running that. So as long as they're smart enough to keep the cost down, like that's always the thing that usually it's somebody with a lot of money will say, we should be running this because it's a lot cheaper. Well, sometimes racing parts are a lot cheaper, but now you just elevated the cost for everybody, not just for you. And it usually is an advantage. Some safety things aren't always an advantage, and I don't know too many safety things there are. Oh, by the way, my transmission is a Jericho. I just remembered. So, but anyway, but it's getting healthier. COVID kind of messed everything up, like it was ridiculous. So, and every sector of life is still paying for that.
Yeah.
Because of the shutdown. So everybody is paying for that. Like every single industry, it doesn't matter what you're in. They either can't get people to work, they can't get product, they can't get material. So when you shut everything down and you do it just blindly, just shut everything down, think that's going to be good. We're going to take 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Right. And then 6 months later, where's your papers? Where's your vaccine papers? Are you kidding? Like, I thought we were just going to, don't visit your family. Don't have nobody over for Christmas. And when you're eating, you better all be wearing masks. Oh, come on. Anyway, all that stuff had really hurt everything. But now that we're opening up, it's going to be better for everything because like we're not restricted to how many fans we can have at a race now. Same in Ontario. It's the same thing. And the guys here are struggling a little bit because some of the tracks in New Brunswick started their own series, a 6-race mini series with the same cars as us. And we got a 12-race series, or 11, I think 11, 12 last year, 11 this year. So what that's done is the series in New Brunswick, and one track in PEI, what they've done is they've advertised 4,000 to win and 1,000 for everybody else. So our series last year was like 2,700 to win and 650 if you finish 15th or 16th. So they had no choice but to up everything, but they upped it really good. They put 3,500 to win. Then there's like 1,200, 1,500, 1,500, 1,200, 1,200, 1,200. And then I think from 10th back is $1,000 to 25th. And then from 25th back is 750. So our series really did they came forward, and that's good. Now, racing is very expensive for everybody because tires are more money now. Shipping is more money when you can't get people to work. So, and diesel, holy cow, like I can't believe diesel used to be cheaper than regular. It was up and down, but if anything, it was like 5 cents more. Well, now it's like 70 cents more. Like it just seems to me like they're doing everything they can to try and mess everything up. Because why would you hammer truckers so bad when that's who delivers everything that we have? They deliver it to all the stores. So naturally they're going to charge all the big superstore stores more money because of shipping, because of fuel. I mean, well, plus everything else too, right? Everything else is up, and then we have to pay more. People have to pay more for anyway. But it's good down here. I really like the guys down here. They're a lot of fun. I watch a lot of good races from inside my race car because I can't keep up like I used to, but that's okay. I'm still having fun.
That's the key. That's the key right there. Still having fun, right? And it's interesting because I think we could both talk about instances where maybe you have those moments where you go, "Oh man, am I really enjoying this anymore?" And when you made that decision to move out and to start racing out of Atlantic Canada, was there any sort of fear for yourself? I mean, because it is a completely different area, and obviously make the choice to move was a good one because it's Atlantic Canada. But
Yeah.
I'm curious as to, were you concerned at all about if you get all the way out there and then it wasn't maybe what you expected?
So two things. Number one, I was born here. I was born in
Perfect.
Truro, and then my family left here in 1950 to go to Ontario. My dad became a welder, very successful welder. So we moved to Ontario, and then I grew up in Ontario, went to school in Ontario, and then started racing in Ontario. So I was very fortunate. When my wife and I separated in 2015, and so I was living on my own, but I rented a place from Bill Grisdale, who owns Grisdale Enterprises. And Bill was really good to me. Like that helped me rebuild. So I was there for 4 years. I had both my cars, my modified and my late model in the trailer, and my dog and I lived upstairs, Buttons. And so that was good for 4 years. Like I was able to rebuild myself and get my credit better and get everything better, get back on my feet. And then one day, Bill, when I paid the rent in April of 2019, he gave me the bad news that he had to have that place for his grandson. Well, I was devastated. I was just crushed so bad because it was perfect for me. It was really nice. The location was good. It was kind of a little bit in the country and in the city as well. So anyway, that day I was pretty upset. So my son phoned me and he said, "Hey, Dad, how's it going?" I said, "Well, not too good." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I have to move." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He said, I just got my notice. I have to move." And I said, "But the good news is," he told me, "I don't have to move until the end of race season." So he was really gracious to tell me that I had until the end of racing. So if I was under there by November 15th, that would have been good. That was the deal he gave me, which was fantastic because he was a great guy. Always looked after me and helped me. And that was a tremendous time for me to rebuild. But now I didn't know what I was going to do. So anyway, my son said this within the same conversation. He said, "Dad, Shirley and I," which is my daughter, he said, "we've already talked. And we said that when you have to move from there, we're going to buy a house for you in Nova Scotia." And I said, "Wow." He said, "Well, you were born there, you got family there, and you can still race there." So I thought about that, but you know what? I would have never been able to find any place in Ontario where I could keep two race cars. I'd have to move to Thunder Bay to drive back and forth to Flamborough. I'd have to leave on Wednesday to race on Saturday, and I wouldn't get home till Wednesday again. Yeah. But anyway, so the next month they left Ontario and they flew down here to look at 4 places, and they picked this one. So
wow.
And when they bought this place, they told the guy to insulate it and put up chipboard inside the building. So he did. And that was part of the deal, because otherwise it was going to be cold in here. Mm-hmm. And they asked me about the house, what I wanted. I said, "I'm more concerned about the garage." Like, that's because I wanted to race. Man, oh man, this is the nicest garage I've ever had. I got all my stuff here. I don't know if I can show you this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
some hardware.
Most of my trophies that I've won. And there's some other stuff here. I'll just give you a little bit of a tour.
Yeah.
So that's can you see that 800?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was in 2017 at the Autumn Colors. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up getting all my hoods up and all my stuff. I got a Dale Earnhardt collection. Hold on. I just lost my mind here. There we go. All right. Anyway, so I was able to get settled here and have this place fixed up, and it's really, really nice. And so that's how I came here. Wow. So I'm kind of back home.
That's great.
I love that. That's amazing. You see all that, because it's funny. You see those videos of kids surprising their dad with their like restored his team
right.
car and everything like that. And I've always wanted to do that for my dad when he wants a 70. We take him back to the car that he drove when he delivered pizzas way back. It was a green 70 Chevelle.
Yeah.
And always would want to do something like that for him. But to have or be able to buy your parents something, like get them a house, and then you said like it's the best place that you've ever been in, and that's absolutely amazing. I want to get this one question out there, because you've been able to do something that with Quaker State that, man, we see it great, and how many times where people have partners, and we've talked about this, and that they don't have much of a presence with them. And I'm curious, Gary, what do you feel is the biggest mistake that people are making when they are able to get a sponsor, a partner? Because it's one thing to get somebody, but I think the harder thing is to be able to keep them.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a seminar on getting and keeping sponsors, because it's one thing to get them, but it's another thing to keep them. And sometimes you can do every single thing that you thought that you should do to keep them satisfied, but they still move on. And it's heartbreaking, because, I mean, if like a lot of teams down here, the kids don't worry about money. Like, they don't worry about it. And there's a few probably in Ontario the same way. They don't worry about, a Pro Late model costs probably 120,000 now, maybe more, 130,000, with no spare parts and no lettering and no extra wheels or tires. So if you're in a situation like I am, where you don't have enough income to I used to, but now I don't, because it didn't cost that much to race a vintage modified, and definitely didn't cost that much to race a Volkswagen. So, but what happens is, when you get a sponsor, they need to mean everything to you. It doesn't matter whether he's giving you 1,500, 5,000, 15,000. It doesn't matter what he's given, whatever he's given you, that has to be really a priority for you to look after them. And so, to me, how you keep sponsors, number one is to let them know what you're doing. So when you get the car done and you get a nice, you have a nice paint scheme, and the car looks good, and any color can be nice. Doesn't matter. The guys will spend the money to have, to get the car looking good. So any color combination can work. It doesn't matter if it's green and black, yellow and black, blue and gold, maroon and silver, whatever. There's a lot of beautiful looking paint combinations, especially today, because the people that are doing our lettering, the people that do our graphics, wow, they got all kinds of equipment now to be able to do 4-color processing to make anything on your car. There's no excuse for not having it. Now, that's not cheap, but at the same time, I always do a budget at the beginning of the year, and I budget everything. And so that has to come out of my pocket or out of my funding from my sponsors. So I and I include everything, rebuilding the car, lettering, painting the car, lettering the car. So, and no matter whether your sponsor is a product sponsor or he's a cash sponsor, they're very important. So for keeping them, number one is to have the car done, send them a picture, keep them updated. I email every sponsor after every race and every show I do. So in other words, I give them, and it's always positive, no matter how I do. I can be upset coming home from the races, but when I do my race report, the headline says Quaker State team finishes in top 10, right? So, like, that sounds like a big deal, and then I write a positive story about it. There was 22 cars there, and, so 7 guys crashed. Well, doesn't matter. We didn't, and we finished in the top 10. So you used to always have a positive feedback to your sponsors. The other thing is I think one of the things sponsors care as much about, most of them are very educated in racing. Like, number one, they're going to sponsor you. That'll be if they like you. So if you're fortunate enough to have somebody that likes you, or that is dealing directly with you or that knows you, then you kind of got a head start. But even that person that knows you, you don't take them for granted. Like my uncle works at such and such, and he got me the sponsorship. Well, don't treat him as if he should have done it. Treat him with respect so that he'll go and say, hey, this kid's doing really good, whatever. They don't call me a kid anymore, but I still act like one. Yeah. So then the other thing is too, and I do this like in 2015, the year that I had a tough year that year, to keep busy, I ran 32 nights and I had 21 shows. So, I just never stopped because I had to keep busy. 21 off-track events. So like Canadian Tire, Easter Seals, all whatever I could do, community events. And then every time you do that, take pictures and do a report, the same as you do a racing, and send that to your sponsors. This week we were at such and such a place, and they have pictures, signing autograph cards. And autograph cards is another thing. Make sure you get autograph cards made, make them professional, and with their logos on the back or the front. It depends how many sponsors you have, and a nice positive write-up. And I think, like one year, Quaker State said to me, because they knew, like I'd been with them then, I think about 43 years, and they said, so we want to know how many off-track events you're going to do. They didn't ask me if I was going to win one race. They didn't ask me if I was going to finish in the top 5 in points. They didn't ask me that. They said to me, we know when there's 24 cars on the racetrack, anything can happen. What we want to know is what you do with the car during the week, besides work on it. Nice. So, do you mind? They asked me, this was when I got a new person looking after me. Do you mind taking your car to events? And when I told them, up to that point, I had already done about 150 events over the last 10 years. They said, oh, wow. I said, yeah, I have no problem at all doing events. I said, if you get them for me, then I'll do them for sure, because I can go to a gas station that sells Quaker State, or I can go to somewhere that, or I can, like what I do now, I go to Walmart because they sell Quaker State, but they also sell Permatex products. So that's 2 of my sponsors covered by going there. And then I take pictures and I send them to them. So at the end of the year, they should have had maybe 12 to, well, not last year. I raced 16 times. So they would have had 16 race reports and 8 show reports, including in Ontario. When I went to Ontario, I went to a high school and did for the shop, and I have my race car in a shop in the kids. It was in Hamilton, Glendale Secondary School. So that went over huge. That was the kids loved it.
No doubt.
So and the sponsors like it too, because and I was introducing the kids to Quaker State Oil, and obviously, and my other sponsors as well. So it's I think it's whatever your sponsor wants, add more to it. That's the simple thing. And don't let, well, for me, like I don't want to put my race car between me and God. I don't want to make my race car my God ever. So I never say, Jesus, you wait in the pits while I go and race, because you're not going to like what you're going to see. Well, if you say that to him, then you're not going to like what's going to happen next. Because for me as a Christian, you never want to leave God out of anything. So I pray. Now, we still get racing as an adrenaline sport. Like it's unlike hockey, where you see the guys, like gasping every shift because they skate up and down so hard. Well, down here, we don't have any races that are less than 150 laps. Every single one of them are 150 laps, and plus a 10-lap heat, plus practice, so it's a great workout. Somebody asked me when I went to the gym. I said, yeah, every Saturday night. That's my gym. So you know what? I mean, it's really important that the way you race is you're representing your sponsors. So don't be doing stupid things. And it's hard because when adrenaline kind of seems to mess up your mind a bit, because you get so frustrated, and you did all kinds of work in your car, and some guy turns you and you go into the fence. Now your car is beat up, so you get mad. So you know what? That's that's tough. It is really tough. But your sponsor looks at you. He might be just as mad as you as if he goes. But if he didn't go, like a lot of my sponsors don't go to the races, they want to hear from me. And so then I go back and say, I'll tell them that we got turned, but I won't say we got turned by this jackass. I won't say that. I'll just say, we were running really close and we made contact and we spun out, but we didn't finish the race, or we went to the back and we ended up finishing 14th or whatever. So just be careful how you trash that guy, because that could be his whatever. It could be his nephew that spun you out.
You know how to treat your partners. That's for sure. And you know how to treat your fans too. It's awesome seeing all these pictures show up on social media, these cars popping up everywhere. Tell us about this program, Gary. Do you have any left, and where can people get a hold of this?
So, yeah, I have, I believe right now I have probably 150 left out of 700. The response has been unbelievable. And what I really like about it, it's been really humbling for me. And I try to be humble anyway. I don't know if you can try to be humble, but I really care about everybody. I mean, to me, I care as much for the guys that can't keep up. And now I'm one of them, but I couldn't keep up at the beginning. When I was first started racing, and I'll get back to the question you asked me, but I can't help but go back and forth. But when I first started racing, I was running into everything. And, I was not wrecking anybody, but so somebody asked my dad, is Gary going to go racing this weekend? He said, well, I think so. He said, is he a good driver? He said, well, I wouldn't say he drives a car. I said he aims it more, like he aims the car. So, and it took a while before I got to the point where I would be able to do anything that, that was respectful. And I mean, not respectful. I mean, where I would be considered a good runner. So It took me and you know what? Don't give up. There's a thing when it says don't give up, because everything that went bad, you learn from it, right? So you've experienced everything that can go bad. It took me 21 years to win my first championship, but most guys would never, ever hang around that long, saying like, if it's going to take me that long to win a championship, like that's ridiculous. Like, how come you didn't win before? Well, you know what? I didn't even know what I was doing on my car. I didn't know what I was doing. Somebody asked me what my stagger was. I don't know. The only thing I knew was stagger. My brother-in-law would come over staggering up in the driveway. Like that's the only thing I knew. I never knew anything about, anything to do with a race car. And then guys were telling me, but do you measure the tires? I said, what do you mean measure them? I said, they're already around. I don't even know what do you mean measure them? He said, well, what's the circumference of your tire? I said, I don't know. I said, I just put them on the car. I don't even know. He said, well, it'll make a difference. So it took me a while to start learning stuff. And once I did, then the talent that I did have, which developed, then, then it started showing. And in 1989, I won my first championship. And then I gave that car to my son. And then I went back running another car because I didn't care, right? Winning a championship was such an unbelievable, to win a feature is one thing. That's exciting. Mm-hmm. But see, winning, only one guy can win. So people used to say to me, Gary, are you going to win tonight? I said, I don't know, but I know one thing. I'm going to race tonight. And that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going there for, to race. Because winning, to me, you never knew if you were going to win. Now, so you could interview a few guys and say, oh, I knew I was going to win, because most of these guys were like Gary. They didn't know anything about their car. So I could beat them easy. And that's true, right? But I didn't care. I wasn't trying to win. I was just trying to finish. Right? Like that was the biggest thing, to get out there. Don't beat up the car, because we don't have a garage. Don't beat up the car. The father-in-law is tired of me working on his grass, right? Like just leave the car in the trailer all week. Well, you can't do that either, but that's what we did, because we didn't care. We just wanted to race. And then anyway, so I didn't lose train of thought, but I'm just trying to say, like, struggle. And then finally start running good. So from about 1987 to 2014, I ran pretty good. Like I was, so I had about 20 over 25 years that I was someone to beat. I had a lot of good nights. I've won 40 features in my career, which you might have that as a question you're going to ask me. So I should answer what you already have asked me. But you know what? I've won 19 of those features after turning 50. Right?
Nice.
Like that's crazy. Like I won 21 when I was young. And
Yep.
I mean, if 50 is old, then I won 19 after I turned old. So,
Still got time there, Graydon.
In October of 2021, I decided I wanted to do something special for our 50th anniversary because I knew I didn't want to wait till 2022 and start figuring out what I was going to do with Quaker State. So I already know that every marketing manager and every company is really busy. They have a lot of things to do. They're very accountable for their money. They're very accountable for what are you doing with the money that we give you? You know, what are you doing to promote the product? What are you doing to sell more product? What are you doing to do this? And if they said, well, we're sponsoring Gary, they said, okay, yeah. But that you're giving money away. What are you doing with the other stuff? Well, we did a trade show and we opened up 5 new accounts or whatever. So marketing managers I know don't necessarily, doesn't mean they don't like you. They just have other things that are priorities. So I decided to take the die-cast car on myself. So, and I'm telling you, I probably have 300 hours in this project.
I don't doubt it.
The first thing I did, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but I prayed God guide me through this because I believe that he wanted it to happen because he's given me good health, sponsors, good people, my pit crew and friends, and you know what? And sponsors, of course. So I'm so thankful for everything I have. So the first thing I thought, okay, I called the guy that letters my car and I said, hey, Kirk, do you think we can make die-cast cars? Oh, yeah, we can make them. He said, how many do you want to do? I said, well, it's going to be 50 years with Quaker State, so I think we should do 50. He said, okay. He said, so do you have any ideas? I said, well, no, but let's just see what we can work on. I think I know what I want the car to look like. I said, why don't you do a die-cast of my last year, like my 2020 car, the one that best appearing car, 2021, do one of that. And then let's see what that looks like. And then we'll plan a paint scheme for 2023. He said, yeah, well, we got lots of time. So anyway, so he did me a die-cast car and it was absolutely beautiful. And then I said, okay, so, and I bought 44 die-casts from his brother, who's a collector. So I bought 44. So I spent about $1,000 to buy those 44, and we were still looking for more. So I was on websites looking for more die-cast cars, like used ones, that people want to get rid of. So how's time? Are we okay for time?
Yep.
Yeah. You guys aren't going to watch a hockey game? No. So anyway, he said, okay. So I said, so what's this one going to cost me? He said, well, I'll be honest. He said, I have 7 hours in this, or 6 or 7 hours. He said, you painted the chassis. I put it together and I had to make all the graphics. And he said, and you know what, Gary, if we're going to make these, we're going to have to sell them for like $250 to $300. I said, holy cow. I said, nobody's going to buy them for $300. And I don't think anyway. I said, that's just, it's just not, I don't think that's going to work.
Right.
So he said, well, we might have to consider something else. So I was looking at die-cast makers, and then a buddy of mine in North Carolina reached out to Lionel and then sent me an email. And then Lionel, I called them. So he said, okay. So he said, so what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd like to make 50th anniversary die-cast cars. He said, 50th anniversary, this your 50th year? I said, no, it's my 50th year with Quaker State. So he couldn't believe it. He said, wow, 50 years with the same sponsor. And I said, yeah. He said, Gary, that's incredible. And I said, I know, and I want to make a die-cast for it. So he said, okay. He said, well, so what do you think? And I said, well, I'd like probably to get 50 cars, or maybe 200 or whatever. Maybe he'll see how much they are. He said, well, let me check and see what you have to order. So he called me back the next day. He said, okay. He said, I checked with our department that makes the die-cast cars. You have to order 700. I said, what? He said, 700. That's the minimum order. I said, oh my goodness, 700. Like I went from 50 to 200. And I thought that was a big jump.
Yeah.
So my kids were saying to me, Dad, how are you going to sell 700 cars? I said, I think I can sell them. They said, you're going to be stuck with a lot probably. And that's going to be a big hit for you financially. So I posted on Facebook on February 1st last year. I put a picture of the green car. I said, it's next year's 50 years with Quaker State. I'm thinking of doing die-cast cars. How many would you be interested? Let me know if you'd be interested. So within 24 hours, 44 people said they were interested. Mm-hmm. So I told Lionel the next day, I said, okay, I want to do this. What do I got to do? Well, he said, first thing you have to do is get letters from every person that's going on the car for licensing. You have to get every single logo has to be high res, and you have to do a paint scheme. And we need, when you do the paint scheme, we need to know the Pantone colors so we can make it like what you want. I said, okay. So then that's whenever the work started, because then getting the letters was nothing. It was like, it was something, but it was really no issue. Now it was getting the paint scheme that I wanted. I knew what I wanted. I wanted a black and gold car, gold for 50. And if you look at the Quaker State logo up on the wall, you can see black and gold in it. Like, you know what I mean? It's got black and gold in their logo.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had a whole bunch of renditions were sent to me, you know, different renders and guys were sent. I said, no. One guy, I said, I want black and gold. He sent me green and gold. I said, no, that's neither one of them are black. I said, black and gold. So anyway, there's a guy in Arkansas that does them for iRacing. And you might have seen his post. Anyway, Rodney Sullins and Kirk Alexander, between the two of them, they worked on getting what I want, because Kirk really, like, he's been so good to me. Like the first year that he lettered my car, he sent me a picture. I said, I don't like that. He said, okay. And I said, I hope you're not offended, but I don't like it at all. He said, no, I'll use it for somebody else. So him and I finally come up with a paint scheme, and it was a home run. Like, it was absolutely like beautiful. Like I got the right paint, green, and then all his graphics were so good. And we were runner-up in Best Appearing Car that year. And then with that same paint scheme, we won Best Appearing Car in 2021. And I declined to put my car in for 2022 because it was exactly the same. I give somebody else a chance, right? I believe if you change your paint scheme, then you have a chance to go against other people. But if you just keep it the same, you know, even though it still could be the best looking car, but that's not the way I want to do it, to give somebody else a chance. So anyway, so we started working. We finally got the paint scheme. So then I sent it to Lionel. Then they start sending me 3D pictures back of the two cars, like one facing and one the other way. I said, man, oh man. I said, that doesn't look like gold. It looks like copper. And then he said, Gary, that's gold. I said, but it looks awful. I don't want tan. I don't want champagne. I don't want orange. I don't want yellow. I don't want copper. I want gold. He said, it will be gold. Oh boy. I said, well, all right. So he said, I'll tell you what. He said, as soon as you approve this, we'll go to pre-production, and then we'll send you 2 prototypes. I said, okay. So I said, all right, let's go with it. But then now I had to send just under $20,000. I had to send to them. That scared the death out of me, right? Now I just paid that kind of money for a picture, right? So anyway, about 2 months later, I get the die-cast car, and I fall in love with it. It's a prototype, but so the trunk, when I opened the trunk, the fuel cell was black. When I opened the hood, it wasn't very detailed. And then, but as far as the outside of it, it looked really good. And he said, yeah, don't worry. And I said, yeah, the gold looks nice. And he said, well, as soon as you approve it, we'll go to production. I said, okay, I'm good to go. So he said, all right, so send us another payment and we'll go to production. So that's what happened. And then, so I got the car. So I was hoping to have it for Christmas because a bunch of people wanted them for Christmas. So one of my sponsors, he had ordered quite a few, and they were going to be Christmas presents. But then I got a message from Lionel saying that the cars would not be here until probably early January. And the reason why was the same thing happening on the East Coast as the West Coast. There was a whole bunch of container ships out in the ocean. Nobody to unload them, right? They didn't have enough people to unload them, and they were way behind. So they said, Gary, you're probably not going to get them until January. I said, oh my goodness. So that was in early December. So I called my sponsor up and I said, look, I'm not going to be able to get the cars for Christmas. And he was disappointed, clearly disappointed, because they were such a beautiful car, and he's seen them because I had the prototype to show him, and he ordered quite a few. And so I had to think what I'm going to do. So I decided to make up a postcard, and the postcard was of the die-cast car, and above it, it had like Christmas lights, and it had Christmas, the green stuff for Christmas. What do they call it? Ivy?
Garland. Garland.
Yeah, or cabbage or whatever. Like, it's just
Yeah.
so. And it said, "Merry Christmas. This is your gift coming soon."
Nice.
So it was a postcard size, and I showed that to him, and he said, "Perfect." So I gave him I ordered 150 of them, and I sent them to other people that had bought them that wanted them for their kids for Christmas. So I was able to overcome that. That was a scary thing. I didn't want any people to be upset.
Oh, for sure.
Then I got the car, and I just tell you a quick story about when they showed up. When the guy showed up with the die-cast, there was 2 skids. So I shoveled my driveway because there was a bit of slush and stuff in the driveway. I shoveled it. And then as he's bringing it towards my garage, he said, "What's in these?" I said, "I'll show you inside." So when I opened the garage door, he said, "Whoa." He said, "You're a race car driver." I said, "Yeah." He said, "So what's in the boxes?" So I showed him the prototype, and he went nuts, and he right away got on the phone and phoned his buddy. And he said, "Darren," he said, "you're not going to believe this. I'm at a guy's race shop." And he said, he just ordered die-cast cars. And he said, "This guy's been racing like over 50 years. So Darren, who follows our series, he said, "Oh, that's got to be the Quaker State guy." He said, "Yeah." He said, "So what do you mean he's got die-cast?" He said, he's made die-cast cars to celebrate 50 years with Quaker State. He said, "Wow." He said, "I'm on my way." So he came. I said, "Where are you?" And he said, "I'm at Tim Hortons." I said, "Grab me a coffee." So he came, and we opened up the one box, and you'll notice it too. So I said, "I want 1 and 36, right?" So if you look at the front of your box that you got, it says 1 of 700, right? So I'm thinking, wow, what are the odds of actually grabbing number 1 in the first box, right? So then when we opened up the car, we didn't open up the car. We grabbed another box for him. He wanted to buy a car, so we grabbed another one, and it said 1 of 700. I thought, what? So then I phoned Lionel. I said, "Number 1, I said, I just got my die-cast cars. I was expecting a Lincoln Continental, and I got a Rolls Royce." I said, "I'm so happy with this. This is unbelievable." I mean, the box, like, I could sell the box for $100. I thought, like, just
Yeah,
so
it's beautiful.
He said, "Yeah, I'm really glad that you're." Yeah, those pictures there. So the first one on the back is 1974. So that's my first year with Quaker State, and the second one is my 10th year, and it says right on the hood, Quaker State 10th year. The third one is my 24th year with Quaker State, and the last picture is my 40th year with Quaker State. So I was so happy with how that turned out, and so anyway, then the guy says to me, "Oh, no," I said to the guy from Lionel, I said, "So it says 1 of 700. He said, "Yeah." He said, "There's 700 cars. I know, but where's 2 of 700? Where's 3 of 700? I said, "They all say 1, right?" He said, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Oh, I said, "Well, then," so we started pulling more up, and I said, "Well, in this box, there's 28, 114, 69, 103. I said, "Are they not in order?" He said, "No." I said, "You're kidding. They're not sequenced?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, where's the number?" He said, "On the back window. You got to take the car out, look at the back window. You'll see the last 3 numbers is the number of the car."
Okay.
Oh, I said, "You got to be kidding." So we have 700 cars that we got to open and then get the number and write it on the cardboard box.
Oh my God.
So those 2 guys come over the next day. They were so excited. They come over the next day, and 4 of my pit crew showed up. So there were 7 of us. It took us 5.5 hours to open every one and number the car. Yeah.
Wow.
So but because some people wanted a certain number, like my crew chief from Ontario, who's been with me many, many years, he said, "Gary, I want 36. I said, "No." I said, "You can't even have 136 because it's gone, but you can have 336. He said, "What are you, crazy?" He said, "I'm your number 1 fan." I said, "I know." I said, "But I want to have 36. He said, "No, your son gets 37. Your daughter gets 35 because that's what her number was. And David was 37. And he said, your grandchildren get 137 and 20, but I get 36. I said, "Okay, you know what? All right." and let me think about it. So anyway, I ended up giving him 36. So I kept 1 and 700.
There you go.
The bookend.
It. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's absolutely amazing. It's a great story. It's a beautiful die-cast car, and we are both.
Yes, it is.
We are both huge die-cast fans, as I'm sure you can see from the collections behind us. But Gary, we could go on and talk for hours and hours and hours, and I think we may have only started with part 1 here, because I think we're going to have to do another episode with you at some point. But obviously, we want to thank you for coming on and chatting with us, and we always like to get to hear and get a thank you out to those people that have supported you. So I'm sure you've got some other partners along with Quaker State that you'd like to thank. So this is the time for thanking them.
So just one thing, if anybody wants a die-cast car, so they can email. Actually, you know what? They could either Facebook me, which is the easiest. So they'll notice I'm on Facebook, and they'll see a picture of Buttons, my dog sitting on a Quaker State table, and a picture of my race car. So if you're a Facebook friend or you want to be, that's the easiest way. Otherwise, you could email me at Gary Elliott Motorsports at gmail.com. And the die-cast cars right now are 125. And depending where you live, shipping would be probably maybe max 35 for parts of Ontario. I just sent one today to Ontario, Burlington. It was $30.20. And I sent one to Port Elgin, and it was almost 35. So, but that's probably I have sent them to BC and a bunch to the US through FedEx. And so that's my paint scheme for this year. That'll be what my car is going to look like for 2023. Beautiful. So I want to thank, obviously, Quaker State. Like one day I said to Quaker State, do you want to be my only sponsor? Like, we'll just put pictures of oil on the car or whatever. And they said, no. You know what? You get as many associates if you want. That's fine. We'll just sponsor you. But then they became my primary sponsor. And then when I did the hood with the big Quaker State filling the hood, like that die-cast, they couldn't believe it. That was as pretty as any NASCAR that races on TV. Like they said, this car should be at the Daytona 500. Yeah. So anyway, but I got a bunch of people that have been with me for a long time. But I must say that East Coast International, the people that sponsor the tour, and also they've been tremendously supportive of me. Pye Chevrolet now they're local. Pye Chevrolet is a car dealership in town. They've been with me since I've been here, 3 years. Yeah, there they are. And you'll notice on the side of the car, grindstone on the trunk. Grindstone
right back there.
Yeah, so he started with me in 2008. And I just tell you this because you got to be careful when you're talking to sponsors, but he really likes me. So I said to him in 2018, I said, hey, Jay, do you think that you could give me a little bit more next year? He said, Gary, I can't give you no more. I don't advertise. I don't have a website, and I'm so busy I can't even keep up. And I only do this because I like you. I said, okay, perfect. I said, good enough. I said, I appreciate it. He said, no worries. He said, just go and have fun. He said, I'm glad to support you. You're a first-class guy, and I really like you. So then when I moved to Ontario, or from Ontario to here, so I was only here like 2 months getting set up in my shop and everything, and I was reaching out to my sponsors. So I called him. I said, Jay, are you gonna sponsor me in 2020? He said, Gary, he said, why would I sponsor there? He said, it wouldn't do me any good. I said, well, I wasn't doing you any good in Ontario, so it doesn't matter. So he said, you're right. So Grindstone has been with me the second longest of all my sponsors. And awesome. Permatex has been with me for since 2013. PPG, they supply all my paint. Permatex supplies me product. Epic Racewear, they've been really good. Dan has been really good with me. So I usually get, and if we're going to do hoodies and hats and t-shirts, which I think we will. Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, they're really good. And they're great people, like really easygoing. and I'm sure everybody reaches out to them for sponsorship, but I try to buy stuff from them and then sell it, like, so they can make money and we can make money as well. And then Race Time Radio, Joe Chisholm, he supports me. His car's logo's on the car as well. And I said PPG, and then Inscapes are the people that make my autograph cards. So they make these, and they're out of Burlington, Ontario, and they're really good to me as well. They've been with me probably 7 or 8 years. And there's a new guy that you got to have on your show. And my cousin, Built by Elliott, I don't want to forget him for sure. Built by Elliott, he does all kinds of wood carvings and all kinds of stuff. He does all kinds of woodwork. He can do, and he does cabinets. He does everything. Like, he's a carpenter, but he also does custom work. And then Finish Line Graphics, that's the fellow that letters my car and helped design that car. And then the last one I want to mention, and it's not the last one, the least important, but they have a board game called Motor City Madness board game. And it's a board game about racing. And it's like Monopoly, like that kind of idea. And so he's been working on this for about 4 years. And they just went to Kickstarter to get it started off. And they're looking for donations to try to get this going. And if it goes good, they want to have a special edition of a Gary Elliott version of it. Yeah, and with the Hall of Fame, because I'm going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame next week, which we didn't talk about because I had too many long stories to tell you. But anyway, I'm going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame next week, and they're going to actually be there. And I invited most of my sponsors, all of them, but it's just impossible for some of them to make it. And nobody from Quaker State can make it, unfortunately, because one of them's going to be in South Africa and the other one's going to be in Kingston, Ontario. So they can't make it, but they're there in spirit for sure. And the other thing about the board game, they're going to have a special edition about featuring, like, for Gary Elliott, and they're going to offer the diecast cars. So
perfect.
Yeah, so it'll be a little more money for that game, but they're talking about buying maybe 75 diecast cars. And if they do, I'm only going to have 100 left for racing. So anyway, it's everything is really good. It's going good. The sales are good, and people are excited. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, everybody's seen pictures of the diecast car, right? Nobody really seen the car itself. And when they got the car, they just couldn't believe how much better it was than the pictures.
It's beautiful.
Unlike a dating site sometimes doesn't work that way. I'm just saying, like, it could be the opposite.
Well, Gary, we we're so honored to have you on, and as Cam said, I hope it's not the last time. We'll talk to you again and see maybe how your season's going, and everybody, get them while you can. By the sound of it, these things are a hot commodity, and I'm so glad to own one. It's a great memento, and we wish you all the best with your Hall of Fame induction too. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. And we'll talk about my next goal is to try and reach 900 in a row. So I have 875 consecutive nights since June 5th, 87. We're going to try to hit 900 this year. So I got to run 25 nights. And then somebody the other day, or about 2 or 3 weeks ago, said to me, Gary, why don't you try to reach 1,000? Because that would be worthy of another diecast car. I said, wow, you're kidding me. But you know what? That's okay. Maybe, who knows? I didn't think I was going to make 50 years with Quaker State on our 40th, because that's 10 years. You got to think about what are you going to do in 10 minutes, never mind 10 years. So thank you very, very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your awesome program. There's I'd like to be on again and then talk about some other things, whatever. I got lots to talk about.
Well, he's definitely going to be on the show again. Gary Elliott on the Stickers and Scuffs podcast.